in New York, they do believe they are Californians. But they really feel that because of social media and because of some gaming, that they are part of a global youth culture. I don't feel that they have lost their local identity. Instead, I really do believe that their identity has been enhanced because they are able to communicate more broadly than we were when we were kids.
Right. Great. That makes sense. Turning to a more general question on Disney, what does Disney see as the challenges of entering markets like India, a developing market like India?
Well, I think it breaks down into three basic categories. There's always a business challenge, understanding the business environment, what is possible, how you're affected and impacted by regulation, and the cost of entry. There is the challenge of creativity, finding the people to work with, finding the storytellers, which I think it may be the hardest thing that we do at Disney on a day-to-day basis, finding those great writers, those great actors, those great directors, those great producing talents that can bring these stories to life. And I think the third great challenge is really, as I said earlier, understanding the audience, really making sure that you're not an export business, that you're really getting in and you're sitting down and you're understanding what is important to people. And that's why I'm so excited about tomorrow, where I'll be in a school and I'll be in focus groups with mothers and their children, because it's very important, and it was important to Disney Channel in the very, very early days. We sat down with kids and we asked them not what's your favorite Disney Channel show or favorite show on a competitor. We said to them, what time do you get home from school? What do you do when you get home? We asked them a very, very important question. Who are your heroes? And do you know what their answer was? Mother, father, brother, sister. We were expecting superheroes. And what they delivered to us was actually the brand promise of Disney Channel, which was kid-driven, family inclusive. A very simple question to ask, but informed everything that we did from that day forward.
Great, yeah, that's quite incredible what market research can do for you. And the importance of India today in Disney's global plans. I know Andy talked passionately about India and that this has been a focus, and certainly with the UTV acquisition, you've grown your footprint. But the global importance of India, given that some of the divisions haven't entered into India, where do you place India on that scale?
Oh, very, very high on the list, if not right at the top of the list, for two reasons. Both distribution and creativity, giving us so many more opportunities to tell great stories and also distribute those stories.
That was our cue to leave the stage. Thank you, Anne. Really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed your talk and your passion for the business. It's great having you here.
Please, can we have another round of applause for Anne Sweeney and Mr. Manjeet Singh for a fantastic keynote. Frame's keynote 2, breaking the barrier between the local and the global, a discussion. I'm going to call upon the moderator, Mr. R. Sukumar, Editor-in-Chief, Mint. Mr. R. Sukumar, if you're amongst us. We'll be having Mr. Robert Bakish, President and CEO, Viacom International Media Networks and Board Member, Viacom 18. Along with him, Sai Kumar, Group CEO, Network 18 and Board Member, Viacom 18. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much. May I request Mr. R. Sukumar, Editor-in-Chief, Mint, if he's in the room, to join us on the dais. Mr. R. Sukumar. I once again request Mr. R. Sukumar, Editor-in-Chief, Mint, to join us on stage. I also request Mr. Robert Bakish and Sai Kumar to join us on the dais, please. Ladies and gentlemen, Frame's Keynote 2, Breaking the Barrier Between the Local and Global, a discussion.
Check, check. All right, I'm told we're running late, so you know who these two gentlemen are. Bob Bakish, Sai Kumar. And we're going to speak about a little bit about global and local content and distribution challenges, and we'll try and not overlap too much with what was covered in the earlier sessions. The interesting thing about this venture between Viacom and the TV18 group is that it's the only surviving broadcast content joint venture in this country. So I thought it would be interesting to start by learning a little bit about the journey, what the Indian partner has learned from the foreign partner, because I remember that when the venture was visualized, it was largely visualized as a broadcast venture with 4 channels. And since then, it's moved into films, it's moved into distribution, and distribution is one of those, messy, regulatory kind of things. And who knows, at some point in time, it might also move into regional television, depending on, how things in the pipeline work out. So, Bob, I'm going to come to you first. What have you learned from your Indian partner? How has this joint venture evolved?
Well, good morning, or maybe good afternoon, everyone. Well, first, we've learned a lot. If you look at our business, we operate media businesses, as I like to say, anywhere there's a semblance of an economy. So we're active in many parts of the world. Going back, and we had been in India as MTV and Nickelodeon and VH1 since, I believe, around '98. So been in the market for a while. But around 2005, 2006 began looking at the world in general in terms of looking at opportunity, and very quickly landed on the fact that India then, and by the way today, is a market of great opportunity for media. And we decided we wanted to have a more significant participation. As we did that, one of the things we decided, even though we don't do this in many parts of the world, is we wanted to get in the quote-unquote general entertainment business. While Viacom has tremendous resources in terms of a historic and leading Hollywood film studio, a portfolio of cable networks, in terms of participating at a larger scale in India, we decided that it would make sense to have a strong local partner. That wasn't about money per se. That was much more about a real connection with the culture, because, by the way, our business here was run by Indians, not expats. So we already had local market employees, but we wanted to find a connected company, an entrepreneurial company, and we talked, obviously, to a variety of people, ultimately landing on Network 18 as the partner of choice. Then we got to the hard work of actually creating Viacom 18 in our vision of really becoming one of the leading diversified media and entertainment companies based in India. And to the point about we're the only surviving JV, at least at the moment, you could say, well, why is that? And I would say it's not enough to have a shared vision. You also need to find the right kind of cultural and management fit, and I believe we found that, and the facts would say we found that in Network 18, and then be committed to the hard work and roller coaster of doing it, because while we were very fortunate that we had great initial success with Colors, where we went from 0 to number 2 in something like 2 months after launch, something nobody, including ourselves, saw coming. The reality is life is a lot longer than a couple months, and the venture has not only flourished, but it's also had its challenges, and therefore been forced to evolve with this changing market. As you mentioned, we not only have a bunch of national services on the targeted side, and MTV, Nick, VH1, we have Colors. We then decided that we wanted to get involved in the film production business. We have a small a film unit. We obviously launched additional multi-channel networks in the form of Comedy Central, Sonic, which is a Nickelodeon derivative, Nick Jr., and we continue, and then we took the major step associated with digitization of creating IndiaCast, and we continue to look at opportunities. So, this has, I wouldn't say this has been a long journey, because 5 years is not that long, but it's been a great journey, and one, fortunately, of tremendous success, and one of continuing commitment, which is important given the tremendous opportunities this market holds, not only within its market, but also, as I'm sure we'll talk about, the opportunity to export content from this market. So that's a high-level answer to your question.
Thanks, Bob. I see a TV camera there, and you know that TV can be an unforgiving medium. So
I know that well.
So I'm going to try and be a little bit more explicit about one of the comments that you made, because when we were speaking about the only surviving joint venture partnership, you said at this point in time. So I'm taking it to mean that there could be more in the future, not that this partnership is at any risk of breaking down.
No. Our partnership is 100% solid. My point is only the competitive landscape continues to evolve. We've had joint venture competitors before.
And who knows,
not
you may have
unreasonable
some
to
in the
assume you
future.
could have some in the future. But no,
I think
Viacom 18 is alive and well, and will continue in its current state.
Coming to you, and I remember at the time when the joint venture was formed, and like they usually are at any point in time when a new thing is being tried out, there were a lot of naysayers. And there were people who spliced the partnership deal and said, like, this is what Viacom is bringing in, and this is what TV18 is doing. And it seemed fairly limiting at that point in time if you looked at the analysis that was being done. Now, of course, in hindsight, if you look at it, it's much more. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
I'll just start by saying that success is a very strange thing. As Bob was saying, did we think that Colors would be a runaway success? We did not. But did we think that today we will be partners in perhaps India's second largest distribution bouquet? We did not at that stage. But I think what was critical was that we were extremely well aligned on the scale of the ambition and the scale of the challenges. So we knew that we were getting into territory where the three big players were established 12, 13, 14 years before we even contemplated getting into the mass entertainment space. We knew the scale of that ambition. So I think that fundamental alignment has held us in good stead. Most of the reports around that time did not even capture the fact that this was not about TV18 and Viacom coming in for existing products, but TV18 and Viacom coming in together to take on the mass entertainment genre in this country. And adding to that, I think I would like to believe that every relationship goes through its phases. And phase one really was very well defined. And phase one was extremely successful. But markets shift. And India is a very dynamic market. I'm sure a lot has been spoken about that today. And I have a lot of pride that in a short period of 4.5, 5 years, we again managed to see a big opportunity in distribution. And it's not really domestic linear distribution, though that's the focus now because of digitization. It's multi-platform, multi-geography distribution, and I'm sure we'll speak a bit about that. So, it's the partnership now is in its second avatar. The positive way of looking at it, because you got on to only surviving JV, like any good moderator would. The positive way of looking at it is it's been 5-6 years and we're still going strong. If you get the journalistic way of looking at it, it could be that we're very close to the 7-year itch.
Okay, specifically, global to local, what were the learnings for you? What did you pick up?
I think the learnings from Viacom have been invaluable. They have seen successes in various markets, which gave us comfort. Because beyond a point, I think Bob and I both believe that entertainment has no boundaries. Formats can be tweaked, they can be localized, they can be dubbed, they can be put into various languages and nuances, but entertainment is entertainment. So we saw that success to a very large extent when we got formats into India and we launched Colors with that. But quite astonishingly, I must say that we've seen reverse migration starting to happen with IndiaCast. Today, soaps that millions of viewers across the country watch are being exported to developed broadcast markets across the world. Now, I would break this into 3 phases, right? One is, you export linear television, and Colors is in more than 70 countries. Number 2 is you go and export programs and syndicate programs, and we're in more than 130 countries. But importantly, what gives me comfort and what could be really a scale proposition is that it's not only about syndication, it's also now about going out with formats. So while a fear factor can come in as Khatron Ke Khiladi, today a Balika Badu, an Uttaran, and so on are formats that are getting picked up by the rest of the world. So imagine a world where a Kahani or an Inkar become Hollywood big bets. And like we discussed a bit earlier today, Suku, I see this already starting. The 5 big Bollywood blockbusters last year were remakes of Tamil cinema. And the cultural nuances and the difference between Tamil and what happens in Bombay and what happens in Hollywood, the distance is not too much to,
They're not very different. Bob, this is obviously something that, it's fairly radical. You do expect a lot of content in the traditional way things work out to sort of flow from markets like the US and Europe to India, but you don't really expect the reverse, and you also don't expect content that's being created here to sort of be reformatted, repackaged through a different distribution mechanism, sold in other countries. What's been your experience? Was this something new to you? Was this something that you'd experienced in other markets before you came to India?
Well, look, I think the world continues to evolve in many ways. But, when we approached India, just going back to success of the venture, and I'll bridge into your question, I talk a lot about part global, part local. And so when the 2 partners came together, we talked about and both committed to certain things that I would say were informed by global learnings, but localized. So, and this will seem obvious, but it was important. One is we committed to having the best management team we could, and we went and we sourced them from the competition and from outside the media industry. We committed to creating a lot of content for India. And so when we looked at, if you will, the initial budgets and funding commitments of the venture, they were very substantial because we knew we were not going into an uncompetitive market, but we also knew that great content could be created with the right teams, with the right vision. The third thing we decided, and this was particularly with respect to Colors, is we said we need to have a brand positioning going into this market. What is the positioning of this service? And that went from a sort of conceptual discussion to a very practical discussion over a couple months as we began really pulling this together. And we decided we would just be a bit more of a risk taker, a bit edgier. And you saw some of the shows, like Barika Vaidu, as an example of that. A show about childhood brides, not something that was on air in mainstream Indian media before, but we thought was an appropriate topic, but maybe a bit edgier. So, a lot of these learnings did apply to the formation and the strategy for the venture. As to content, you're right. Historically, most content and I guess today still most content would travel from, say, the US studios, maybe the UK market. A lot of formats come out of the UK. And by the way, the UK formats didn't used to go to the US till about 5 years ago, and they do today. But I think what we're seeing more and more, and maybe this is a result, well, it's probably a result of two things. One is the fact that real local production money is now being spent in many countries around the world. I mean, and you have for a number of years now, you have a real media industry in India. Maybe it's not as big as it could be, listening to Uday this morning, but it is a major industry, and it will only become bigger. And out of that come quality products. The second thing is you have a more interconnected world than you used to. People travel extensively. There are expats living in other countries, and they want to be entertained. And technology is such, with multi-channel television and, if you will, broader digital infrastructure, that you can do it now in ways you couldn't before. So that, in turn, is allowing these products to be exported not only from the US and the UK, but also from important media markets like India, and that's very much part of what this joint venture does and what the formation of IndiaCast, our distribution JV, is all about, because it's not just for the domestic market, it also applies internationally. And I think you will only see more of this. The most valuable IP in media today is a hit television format. Because if you think about production, content creation, it's a sort of black box battle against the odds. By definition, everything you create is not going to be a hit. Probably most of it won't be. But if you have created something in a real market and it really works, and you understand the format Bible and you understand the characters, et cetera, then the probability that you can replicate that in another important television market or media market is much higher than the probability of creating a one-off hit. Ergo, why these formats are traveling, and why we even launched Colors with a format. It was called Fear Factor, where we created an Indian version at a substantial budget level that really early on captured the imagination of the market here. So yeah, I think it's something you're going to continue to see. I know it's something that for example, at Viacom International Media Networks, we run 60 MTVs around the world. And we're doing a lot of work on formats right now, deciding, what are the next ones we're going to bet on, because we know it is one of the great values of scale, and at the end of the day, that's important.
And it's actually quite surprising when you put it that way, that it's not something that wasn't done before, right? Because this is something that the auto industry, or for that matter, big pharma, has always done. Spend a lot of money in developing something and then take it all over the world and sell it wherever there is demand. And if you've got a format, it's pretty much what you're doing. You'll obviously tweak it for the local market. But stepping back and moving away from this joint venture, we'll come back to IndiaCast because I want to speak about IndiaCast. But I also want to get from you some global perspective, because if you look at this business that you're in, there are significant challenges. There are challenges on the content side. Cost of content production keeps increasing. There are various new players who keep getting into it. There are distribution challenges, and companies which were once in distribution are also trying to do content, like the Netflix example with House of Cards, which neither here nor there. Jury's still out on whether it's worked for them or not. Then there is the whole digital thing, which, with consumers, at least some of them, moving away from linear television to on-demand TV or on-demand videos. A lot of it is online. Where do you see the market going? And where is a company going to make the most money from?
That's obviously a very big question, but and one a lot of people, ourselves included, work hard day in, day out to solve. But as I said, the world's evolving. It's evolving from an economic perspective, where there's huge wealth and more importantly, middle class economics being created all throughout Asia, for example. It continues to evolve from a infrastructure standpoint, particularly on the media side. Today you have better and more far-reaching pay TV plant than you ever had in history. It's one of the reasons why more linear television is watched today than at any point in history. But you also have that plant being used in more directly controlled consumer ways, whether that's video on demand, ad-supported basis, subscription basis, whether that's some over-the-top provider like Netflix, as you mentioned. So we've seen tremendous change, and like all change, it creates risk and it creates opportunity. I think the opportunity side is the important thing to focus on because, we look at our content as example. 10 years ago, you could only watch it from the couch in the living room. And most likely, well, certainly in India, there was only one television set in the house. Today, you can watch it on probably multiple television sets in the house. You can watch it on your laptop. You could watch it on your tablet. You can watch it on your mobile device. I was talking with someone recently, and we were talking about tablets and TV everywhere, which is another important development in the distribution side. And really, the enabler of all that wasn't the tablet. The enabler of that was the wireless network in the house. That's really, one of the things that people don't talk about that is really unlocking people's ability to consume more content in more ways than ever before. And it's why at the center of our mission, it has always been and will always be to invest to create great content, whether that's in India, whether that's in the UK, whether that's in the US, whether that's an original, whether that's a format derivative, or whether that's an acquisition, that's packaged. That is at the heart of accessing this opportunity. And again, I think going forward, the opportunity remains very, very significant. Sure, there's migration issues we have to deal with, but at the end of the day, we can offset those by accessing these grower consumer bases, by licensing in rights to people that are providing access to content in different ways, et cetera.
Yeah, Sai?
Just a couple of points to add to what Bob is saying. Is, it takes me back about 13, 14 years when our company was moving from being a production house to a broadcaster. And we had a tagline saying, content is king. And then life changed soon after that because we were constrained by platforms, we were constrained by clogged pipes in distribution. And soon you realized that distribution was king. I think cut to today, whether it's globally or in India, whether it's because of digitization or the rollout of broadband or better quality of connections, the good news for media entertainment is that content is back to being king. And from a manager's perspective, from a media professional's perspective, you look at life as, there are always problems, but there are good problems and bad problems. I think this is a good problem because, go back to what Bob said, consumption is at its highest. But the problem here is consumption has gone multi-device. Already you see that the monetization on TV is good, monetization on PC internet is okay, monetization on mobile is downright bad, monetization on app does not exist, monetization on web is a challenge. But I still would put this as part of a good problem because the underlying theme is that usage is at an all-time high and content is king. And these multiple windows, if you will, to just make a statement, but these multiple windows are the various kingdoms that you operate in. Each kingdom will have its own regulation. Each kingdom will come with its own challenges. But it's a good problem.
But it's also an expensive problem, right? Because content is expensive and it's getting even more expensive.
Well, not really. I would try to flip it. I would say that content production in the past was tied in very intricately to the platform of its exposure. So you were either a broadcast producer or you were not a broadcast producer, or you're a radio producer or a digital producer. But now you are a producer of content, and broadcast, radio, digital, apps, web, and so on are the multiple distribution platforms available for you. So I would argue that the possibility and the potential of milking your content has gone up dramatically, while content costs more or less, give or take a bit, is stable.
Do you also see a bit of a long tail emerging in this?
Well, yes, I do.
Or is it all going to be driven by blockbuster programs?
Well, I believe that if the theme of this conference about getting to 1 billion